Welcome back. Another episode of Arizona Wildcats Insiders Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hutchison. We are getting ever so closely to the 2025 college football season, meaning the Arizona Wildcats will be back on the field very soon, August 30th, a little bit over a month out. They will be taking on Hawaii in the season opener in Tucson on TNT. The Rainbow Warriors versus the Arizona Wildcats, kind of like a classic game in terms of the two programs that were coached by the legendary head coach, Dick Tomey, who turned both programs around and got them to respectability. And for Arizona, got them into one of the best positions they've ever been in the golden era of Arizona football, the 90s, the Desert Swarm defense, winning 10 or more games twice during that era, beating Miami in the Fiesta Bowl 29-0 and Nebraska in the Holiday Bowl 23-20. We are getting closer, meaning we are in the middle of training camp in year two under Brent Brennan. Noah Fafita is back along with company, but changes on the coaching staff have been made. Joe Salavea is now the defensive line coach. Seth Dagey is now the offense coordinator, and Danny Gonzalez has been promoted to defense coordinator. So we're in the middle of training camp. We'll have a lot of coverage on training camp, but we are also getting closer to the 2025-2026 college basketball season. And yes, even though everybody is excited about Arizona football, college basketball is the true heart and soul of Tucson, Arizona. And leading the Arizona Wildcats is none other than Tommy Lloyd, who will be entering his fifth season as Arizona's head coach. The last 4 years, Tommy Lloyd has been to the tournament each and every time, getting in the Sweet 16 three times, one first-round exit against Princeton. That is a little blemish on the record for Coach Lloyd and the Wildcats. But overall, three Sweet 16s, one shot at getting to an Elite Eight, well, two shots at getting to an Elite Eight in terms of the game being close, Duke and Clemson. Things just didn't bounce their way. But a lot of talent coming in for Arizona, even with the departure of Caleb Love going to the NBA in terms of graduation. Carter Bryant leaving early to go to the NBA. Some transfers like Henry Vasar going to North Carolina, KJ Lewis going to Georgetown. Arizona still welcomes back four key players in the nation's number one recruiting class, headlined by three five-star recruits. Koa Pete, Brady Burry's really leading that recruiting class as top 15 players in the country. Phenomenal athletes. Koa Pete just ended an overseas trip with Coach Tommy Lloyd, winning the gold medal in the U19 World Cup games, becoming the most decorated Team USA junior national player in the history of Team USA with 4 gold medals. Tommy Lloyd, it's his second gold medal in that event. So phenomenal offseason for them. Braden Burry stayed in Tucson, getting to work with Jaden Bradley, getting to work with some of the coaches on the coaching staff, and getting everything geared up and ready to roll as we approach the college basketball season. Again, we're a long way out. But with that being said, it's given us time to look over top players lists, top coaches lists, where Arizona might rank with other teams across the country and in the Big 12. Big 12 is one of the most competitive conferences in college basketball. In my opinion, it is the deepest conference and the best conference in college basketball, even with the SEC's success last season with all those ranked teams, all those top 10 teams. I think you look top to bottom, the Big 12 is a better conference than the SEC, and it has night in and night out juggernauts to deal with. Even teams like West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Central Florida that kind of faltered in the second half of the season. All those teams were ranked in the top 25. West Virginia was in the top 15. Cincinnati was in the top 15. Just tremendous programs. West Virginia will have Kirk Reese this upcoming season, new head coach there. So they're going to be interesting to watch. But why am I bringing up the Big 12 conference? Well, recently On3 released a top 10 Big 12 coaches in college basketball lists. They probably did this for every other conference. I just saw the Big 12 rankings. And Arizona coach Tommy Lloyd, obviously a top 10 coach in the conference, ranked in the top 6. I think that's about where he is, maybe a little bit higher. But as you go over that list, some of the coaches that didn't make the list are going to be Bobby Hurley at ASU, near the bottom of the conference. Tad Boyle, Colorado, near the bottom of the conference. And to my surprise, that didn't make the top 10, and I think he should have. is Johnny Dawkins at Central Florida. I know Central Florida's kind of been up and down, but when you have Wes Miller at number 10 from Cincinnati, I think Johnny Dawkins is a better head coach than Wes Miller. Even though he's done tremendous work with the Bearcats, I think Johnny Dawkins has a longer resume of success. But look at that top half. So 1 through 4 are very interesting. Number 1 was Calvin Sampson, which I think he is the best coach in the conference and one of the top 3 coaches in college basketball. You see what he's done at Houston, building that program from the ground up. Been there 7+ years, reached a Final Four national championship game. My opinion, probably should have won this national championship game, just faltered a little bit. But he has gotten Houston back into a powerhouse form that it hasn't seen since Fly Slamma Jamma. Houston hasn't been Houston since Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. I mean, that's the flat out truth. They have not been that type of Houston for a very long time. Now, it's different. It's physical, it's defensive minded, and it's great half court offense. It's not that run and gun style that you saw in Houston before. But Houston is one of the best programs in the country. And as long as Calvin Sampson's there, they're going to be rolling. They have one of the best recruiting classes in the country coming in. They always have veteran talent returning. I get why Calvin Sampson was number 1. I'm a little bit shocked because number 2 was Bill Self. Bill Self has 2 national championships to Calvin Sampson's 0. He's been to the Final Four multiple times. His time at Kansas is storied. Over 600+ wins, one of the all-time great head coaches in this modern era. But I get why he's number 2. I think if you go head-to-head, Calvin Sampson is a better coach. I think Calvin Sampson's a better executor in terms of in-game adjustments. I think Calvin Sampson gets the most out of lesser talent, even though Houston's very talented. Kansas always has top 5 recruiting classes rolling in, and yet they've had very underwhelming seasons every now and then. And even this year, you had Hunter Dickinson, and everybody was celebrating that. You got big-time transfers. You got the transfer store from Wisconsin, and you're supposed to be a top 5 team, number 1 in the country to start off the year, and you barely make the tournament. Don't have a deep run. I kind of understand why Calvin Sampson is ahead of Bill Self. Now you go after that, then you go to Scott Drew, which I think is a tremendous pick at number 3. Won a national championship, has been there 20 years at Baylor, gotten them to a Final Four, and has really put that program on the map. He is their version of Lute Olson for Baylor basketball. Very different styles. Obviously, I'm not comparing Lute's style to Scott Drew's style, but when you think of Baylor basketball before Scott Drew, not a lot comes to mind. For Lute, you still had Fred Snowden and all that dating back into the 70s, but Baylor basketball, there wasn't much there. And Scott Drew built that program from the ground up, has turned them into one of the top 15, top 20 programs in the country, and always competing for a Big 12 championship and competing to get to an Elite 8 or Final Four. So I get why Scott Drew is there. Then you have Iowa State's coach at 4. Then you have Texas Tech's coach at 5. Iowa State, he's done a tremendous job there. They've been able to roll ever since Fred Hoiberg left that program. Very tenacious, very gritty basketball team. Has been in the conference a little bit longer, has been coaching a little bit longer. So I get why he is there. Texas Tech's coach, was an interim at first, took over, got them to a Final Four. I correct myself, Chris Beard got them to the Final Four, but has been on the cusp of a Final Four, got to an Elite 8 this past season. Texas Tech is one of the grittier programs, one of the better programs in the state of Texas. I think you could rank them number 2 behind Baylor in terms of the programs in the state of Texas, and well ahead of Texas right now. Longhorns are not at that point. So I clearly see why he is there, but I would argue that Tommy Lloyd is the better coach. I would argue that Tommy has been able to do more recently. I know one has an Elite 8, one does not. But head-to-head, Tommy's gotten the best of him, winning 2 out of 3. I think his recruiting style is a little bit better in terms of getting top tier talent here in America. You've seen it with the #1 recruiting class, but also being able to go overseas and get high profile international recruits and develop these guys and get them to the NBA level. I think both coaches are tremendous. They're best of friends. They absolutely love each other. And I think this is going to be a rivalry in the Big 12 is Arizona and Texas Tech. Somewhat of a friendly one, but two programs that are very gritty. Arizona showed grittiness last season, and two coaches that know each other very well. So you're going to see this turn into a rivalry. But Tommy comes in at number 6. And I get it. He's got to get to an Elite Eight. But when you're talking about a record of 112-33, which is one of the best starts to a 4-year, 5-year career in the history of college basketball, it's one of the best starts ever. How do you not have them higher on that list? They've had high seeds. They've been winning games. They've scheduled tough opponents, are able to beat those tough opponents. I know last year they started off slow going 4-5, but everybody counted them for dead. Everybody thought season was over after that. I even sat on a radio show and said, I don't know if they make the tournament with how things were gelling and going. And all of a sudden, everything flipped. They got tougher. They got grittier. They didn't care so much about getting the ball up, but yet they were still #1 in scoring in the Big 12. Everything started to sink in. Tommy had a little chip on his shoulder, and all of a sudden they started to roll in the Big 12, finished number 3 in the Big 12 after the slow start, and to get to a Big 12 championship game, and what a tough conference it is with BYU, Baylor, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas, Houston, not to mention West Virginia, not to mention TCU. So I think Tommy should have been one spot higher on that list, but I think he's around that area. And I think the top 3 is very clear. They're the veterans. They have championships. They've been to championship games. They've been to Final Fours. I get it. But as you see over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think you'll see Tommy Lloyd starting to approach that top 4, maybe get into that top 3 if he can have success with this roster and finally break through the Sweet 16 barrier that has been there for him. But I think Arizona has a good situation going into 2025, 2026, and this is going to be a special year for Arizona Wildcat fans.